I actually changed my mind on the whole truss idea. I've actually never done this like this before. Actually, I have on this roof. First time I ever did this. Didn't think I would ever do it again. Instead of making a truss for the end, because normally, I'll make a truss, like a triangular shaped thing, all glued together, and I'll glue it on, well, except for the bottom part, just the top two, and then I would put a piece going across the middle, to hold it together. I would put one on this end, one on that end, and that would make a ridge beam, basically a long stick that would go in between at the very top of the ridge. And then you would fill in the rafters from there. But instead what I'm doing is I'm completely stick framing it, and I cut one rafter, then I cut the other. They have to be exactly the same, and then this piece right here is the ridge beam, and that goes in between them, and they lean up against it and hold it up. So that's why I made these separately. These diagonal pieces are just temporary. That's my Facebook, by the way. They're just temporary. Yeah, as you can see, it's not even level or anything. It's, they're just sitting there. I just glued them there. I'll be moving them around. I have to do the next two rafters, which are going to be over here somewhere. Not on the very end. Right here and about right there. I'll do those two just like this. And then I will put the ridge beam in. And then I'll modify everything. Then I'll glue it together all tight. And then you'll see it. Alright, so this is the end of day one. What I did was, and as you saw in the last clip, is I had each rafter glued down. Then I went and did the other side the same way. And then what I did is I went ahead and I made the ridge beam. And because these rafters could have been leaning out or leaning in, to measure the length of the ridge beam, I measured from right where this rafter starts to right where this rafter starts, and made it exactly that long. Then I went and I glued it in between the rafters, just like that. Then I went ahead and made sure it was level. I didn't actually check it with a level, but what I did, because I know the walls and everything are level, took my other side, took my ruler, which is 16 inches, and it's hard to see it now, probably can't see it on here. There's a mark, and the line below the mark is the top of the ridge board, and it's the same on that side. So it's the same height on either side, and also, assuming my house was built nice and level, and that seam where the ceiling vault meets the wall there, assuming that's level, we can line this up. If you line it up with that line, look at that, they're perfectly parallel. Do you see that? The line I just showed you versus the line that's in focus, and now that line, they're perfectly parallel, which means that this is nice and level. Now that's just the first part of it. Second part is the whole thing could be swaying this way and this way. So what I did is I put the first stud, there's my first wall stud, the one that's going vertical. Put it right there at the bottom, right up here at the top, just going pretty much just right underneath the ridge beam. And then I put what's called a sway brace, which actually could have been a little bit bigger, but this works. And I glued this end down, and then I made sure this was nice and perfectly straight up and level, and this was level. And then I glued it on there, so it will not sway that way. And actually, if you take the ruler and line it up, it's perfectly straight with the walls. Assuming the ridge beam is the right length, that side is also straight up and down. But I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm not really going to do anything with that side just yet. And then these things in here are just to keep it from sagging. Once I fill in the rafters, we won't have to worry about that, because as you can see with those two, the rafters hold up the ridge beam. So it's pretty, you know, I could take those out and it'll stay there. It's pretty much floating there, and because the rafters are leaning up against it and they're attached to it, that's why it's being held up in the air. Now the next step that I'll do is this same triangle thing, but right here, and this will be the end of it. So this will be going up just like this, then right about here it'll start going down. So essentially the roof is not going to end here. The roof is just going to be perfectly flat. You won't even be able to tell this is here. But right about here the roof will start going down, and the ridge beam for this one will be right here. So the roof will just be a little bit lower here, and then there will be a mini wall right in this section. And then what I'll do after that is this gable. I have a gable here, there, and then a big one. But I won't even do these gables. Well, maybe I'll start framing it, but I won't even do these until way later on, once I have the sheathing started. So that's that. If you look down the ridge beam, it's fairly straight. I'll fix that up when I'm actually doing the rafters. And then that's pretty much everything. If you look at it, it's not going up or down. Nice and level. I also use these to make it level. So it's pretty much perfect. So I'm gonna, I'm done for today, but next time I work on it, I'll do this one, ridge beam, and then I'll get started with the rafters. So, alright, so here's the final video for now. I'll show you what I did. Today, I worked on it, obviously. And I put on this mini roof section. I won't even talk about that. This doesn't really matter what I was going to talk about. Basically, I just put up 2 rafters there, and then I actually did 2 here. There's actually, that one's doubled up. Put the ridge beam. I actually did all the gable studs, and I put in the rafters. Now, upon looking at this house from a distance, because this is where I sleep, when I'm laying down, looking at this, that gable on the left there, see how perfectly straight up that line is? It's real nice. And this triangular sway brace right there is what's keeping it like that. Now on this side, I noticed from sitting over there, that was leaning outward a little bit. And so I fixed it by moving the rafters. I looked at all the measurements, and I ended up having to move the rafters about 1/8 of an inch to the left, or in. And so I'll have to snip off that last bit of ridge. But I'll show you the measurements, because they're a little bit off, and it's made out of popsicle sticks. So I mean, what can you expect? It's as perfect as I could get it. So if we hook the measuring tape on here and come across, actually let me do it up a little bit higher. If we do this, it's see how it's 3/4 of an inch, and it's a 1/16 past that, so it's 13/16, right? Come up to the top. Now this is hooking onto the end of the ridge, not my new measurement, and it's a 1/16 over 21. So that's a whole quarter inch. Wow. It's hard to do this while holding the camera. And then hooking it onto where I fixed it, it's about 1/16 over a quarter, which is 13/16. So I moved it to compensate for that. And how I knew, I think I already showed you this, but how I knew that this was straight up and down is I just put my ruler going up like this, and obviously it's nice and straight, so that made sure that was straight. So by doing that, I put these rafters up. I measured how far it is from the end of this to here, this corner. That's how long I made the ridge beam, and I just put that in place. And you know, it's nice and level. If you line it up, see the bottom of the window there? It'll be parallel with that. Do you see that? You're looking at it, they're nice and parallel, so that means it's level because the window's obviously level. And then yeah, I did those 3 rafters in there. I doubled up the rafters. It's just 3 sticks glued together, and then I put a 4th one on here just for extra support, because it was like this previously. It was just 3 of them, and then I put an extra one on the other side here, and you know, it's pretty strong already. And in the next video I'll talk about how I'm gonna make the roof really strong, like that one, because that roof is really strong. But I'm gonna do some different things, and I mean, things they would do in real life. I'm not gonna do a bunch of bull crap, because I mean you could, but I try to keep this as realistic as possible, and as similar to real framing as possible. So I'll be talking about that in the next video, though, just because this video is already long enough and I talk too much. So that's really all I have to say. Next time I'll work on it will be probably the day after tomorrow. And then what I plan on doing next is I need to cut all these rafters. I'm going to move the time-lapse camera from there over to here somewhere, looking down this way, so that you can actually see the rafters going on from this kind of view instead of from a side view, because it'll look better. So I'll have to figure out how to get that up here, and then I'll fill in all these rafters in the back. One thing you need to be careful of is if you fill in all the back rafters, they're all pushing their weight this way, and just from me pushing on it, and this thing is flimsy, so I don't want to have this be bowing this way, so I'll have to be very careful that I keep it straight. The only reason I wouldn't do the other side is because I would have to turn the whole house around, because the glue gun doesn't reach to the other side, plus I would have to be standing on this side. So I'd like to do one side at once. Either that, or I can just fill in like 2 or 3 rafters here just until I get that side up, and then I'll finish this side. But I'll do that, and then I'll frame that gable, turn the house around, do all this, do these gables, and then once I get all the rafters looking like this, I'll finish this roof probably, and then I'll do all the backing at once, which are these sticks that go across horizontally, and then all at once I'll sheath it, and then we can do the siding, and then we'll be done. So that's that update.